Hello, 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 and welcome everyone. I am Aura Vasquez, and I want to welcome you to join Get to Know the Candidates. So, this is a live stream that I have created with the intention for us to get to know candidates that are running for office, to get to know their office, who they are, for us to build relationships with them, and also for us to get educated and get involved. So today I am so excited to be interviewing Dulce Vasquez. We share the same last name. And she is a candidate for Los Angeles City Council, District 9. And she has so much to share with us. And as I bring her in, I want to also encourage you guys to ask your questions in the comments and get involved here in the chat and let us know what you think about her answers and any questions that you might have. So there she is. Hi, Dulce. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfect. I'm going to lower my volume because I always have like trouble with both of the sound here. But yes, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. To me, it's very important to bring people to my community, my online community, to bring people that all of us can learn from, and also ask questions. And as we build collective power together, that we also build relationships with people that are going to be decision makers. So thank you and welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent.
Awesome. So why don't we begin with you introducing yourself to the people that are, watching the live stream right now?
Absolutely. So first, thank you, Ada, for the platform. I mean, there's no one that knows more exactly what I'm going through 34 days before election day. So I appreciate you sharing your platform and letting me share my story. I'm Dulce Vasquez. I am running for Los Angeles City Council in District 9. I was born in Tampico, Tamaulipas. It's a Gulf city. It's a Gulf Coast city in Mexico. My parents brought me to the US when I was 7 years old. I spent the next 7 undocumented cleaning houses with my mom, who I think just joined the chat as well. My mom still cleans houses. Unfortunately, I wish I made more money to, fund her retirement, but I'm working on it, Mom. It's going to come up soon. And my dad works in construction. When I got papers, the world opened up to me. I was able to go off to college, one of the best universities in the country, studied hard, and then graduated, came to Los Angeles and worked. I ran a nonprofit for 9 years that did work all around the city, basically bringing people together and educating them on issues that were happening in their own communities. And now I work in education because I think it's so important, particularly for Latinas, to be able to go to college and go to a 4-year university and be able to bring up their families with them. So I am now running for Los Angeles City Council because I was really upset at how the pandemic was being managed or mismanaged by our currently elected officials.
Yeah, and I want to dive deeper on that question, but I also want to just add, because you reminded me, I was also an undocumented student. I came a little older than you. I came at age 18 from Colombia. And I cannot tell people, if you are watching right now, I cannot tell you how important it is to having the voices of women that have the immigrant story, because our city is composed by so many immigrants. And I'm not just talking about Latinos or Chicanos. Just like the Colombia, there's so many from all over, from Africa, from African countries, from the Middle East, from like Jewish immigrants, European immigrants. I mean, there is all sorts of immigrants in our beautiful nation, and especially in our diverse Los Angeles. And our voices need to be centered in the conversations, especially when we make decisions, because it's so important for us. And if you're one of those people that are going to tell me, well, I'm not an immigrant, but you probably have an immigrant friend, just become that person. So it's like so important. So I am just so excited to see more of these stories really coming up and sharing how important it is for us to be on a stage where we can really elevate the issues that affect people like us, So
And I think that, obviously I wholeheartedly agree. And one of the biggest issues that I saw through the pandemic and having that not just immigrant lens, but really that formerly undocumented lens is that when the stimulus checks were being mailed out, the families that were mixed status, neither of them could receive the stimulus check, obviously.
okay.
And
Hmm.
I kept thinking to myself, when I was little, my brother was born here,
Hmm.
and we were able to qualify for food stamps
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
he was an American citizen.
Hmm.
But, we would go grocery shopping, and the same Cheerios that we would get on food stamps, like, I could eat.
Yeah.
So that sort of assistance helps the entire family.
Yeah.
So really leaving a whole, mixed status families out of the stimulus was hugely damaging to our immigrant community, and something that I was a vocal advocate against and would continue to be with a bigger platform of city council.
It's tremendous. And it's not just that. I mean, look at what is happening right now with the leaked documents from the Supreme Court in Roe versus Wade, and how this is really going to affect our community, like the most vulnerable. Because
Right,
women with money in more affluent communities, they're going to be able to get access to a
right,
private doctor. They're going to be
right,
able to get what they need, the medicine that they need. They're going to be able to do it in the way they want. It's really low income, people of color, women in more not so much in urban areas, but in rural areas. These are
right.
the people that are affected. So I feel like it's so important to have your voice at city council right now. So
Well, when we think about it, just staying on the Roe v. Wade issue, I mean, it's not just about obviously like privacy, a woman's right to choose, et cetera. Like this is an economic decision, right? This is an economic
100% in
the
control.
fact that in control, yeah, absolutely. But every time a woman waits an additional year to have a child, her earnings increase by 11%.
Yeah,
You are much more likely to get your BA by like 80% if you don't have a child in your teenage years. And all of those things affect our community. And I think that it's obviously like an economic choice that you have fewer kids born into poverty if you have abortion access. So
of
this is just
course.
like huge. This is a huge issue and predicament, particularly for our community.
Yeah. And I mean, I want to invite folks that are watching to ask your questions in the comments, and you can also just share your thoughts in the comments as well. I also think that is very evident that this is about control. This is about a wave of conservative patriarchy ideology that we haven't been able to shake off. That is really leading the charts, and these are the same people that are against rights for our LGBTQ community. They're the same ones that don't want women to get paid the same amount of money that men. you know,
Well, I mean, this is a dam opening, right? The,
Mhm.
the issue of privacy is a dam opening against, mixed race marriage, against LGBTQ plus rights. It just sort of goes on and on and on. The repercussions that this can have on our society.
Yeah. So now that we see, people used to ask me this a lot. And now that we see all of these issues happening in Washington, D.C., we continue seeing it, right? Like a student debt is still, it's a conversation that is in everybody's living room, but like Washington, D.C. don't want to take on, even though Democrats are controlling.
Overwhelming, yeah, and overwhelming. Like it's mind-boggling. I spent
It's very
two
frustrating,
years
yes.
Well, it's super frustrating, and again, goes back to I spent 2 years in grad school studying student debt and how it impacts low-income communities because they're the ones that take out lower lower number, loans at higher interest rates
Right.
that take longer to pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. Because more affluent, people, they don't have to take student loans. So I have heard this argument too. Well, it's not fair that if I don't need to take a student loan, why do I have to pay for them? I have heard this argument. And the other argument is, well, if we're gonna let low income people, we're gonna give them a pass, why would we do it with rich people? So, there's a lot of arguments, but I wanted to ask you, in a moment in history where we're seeing so many things, why do you want to run for local office, and why not something else?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, yeah, why are you running for city council? They had seat in town.
Yeah. Well, I think there are so many different issues that the city council deals with. And I think as I went through the pandemic and as I was finishing up grad school as the pandemic started, being able to study the failures that our municipal government was doing, like on the federal level, on the state level, you can have all of the amazing, incredible policies, progressive policies that you want. None of it works if it's not being implemented at the local level. And I think that some of those failures of government were what we saw happen. You had millions and billions of dollars coming in to the state and to the city, but how
Mhm,
were those being spent? How were those programs being executed? Who were the
mhm,
ones in charge of executing some of those? So, going back, thinking about that, seeing it through an education lens, because I work in education, and the digital divide or access to reliable internet, um, even down to telling people like, hey, yes, we're in quarantine, yes, you should stay indoors, but also go outside, do some recreation for your mental health. And I'm sitting here like there are no green spaces in South Central, and if there are, they're in schools, and the schools are all locked.
yeah,
So
yeah.
these like minor things where like the city council doesn't manage our education system, but the Parks and Rec could work together with our local school system to make sure that those sorts of resources are open to our community.
Yeah,
So
community
so those
supports. Yes.
that walking my dog around and seeing trash everywhere. And I'm just like, this is not normal in, West LA, in
Yeah.
Westwood, in Mid City. Like, why is it normalized here that our elementary school kids literally trip over trash in order to get to school? And these are, our public school system is now super majority Black and brown kids. Like, we are telling them this is okay, this is not okay. So being able to fix for the small things before trying to like tackle the big things, though, they're small and big in city council. City council approves everything related to planning. So for us, and the conversations that I hear from the community, housing is such a huge issue, and housed within housing is our homelessness problem, and how many people are unhoused. And that is because we have a severe housing crisis.
Yeah.
And to solve for housing, you need housing.
Yeah.
So being able to build housing that is fit for the community, that is affordable, but it's done rapidly.
Hmm.
So much of the costs that we hear around building homeless housing at $800,000 a unit, half of that is the time that it takes to build it. We think that like, oh, the project is a fixed price, but no, the longer it takes to build it, you're still paying for staff, you're still paying a mortgage on a land purchase, you're paying for architects and planners, etc. Like, all of those costs are just being offset into the rents that they charge at the tail end. So how do we solve for some of that? How do we build near transit corridors to encourage people to get out of their cars? How do we build 15-minute cities in every single council district to make sure that everything we have an ecosystem of jobs that are high paying? We have transportation, we have housing, we have doctors. There's a woman that I happened to be outside when this woman was hit by a car last week.
Mm.
And when the firefighters, you have to solve for how fast people are driving on our streets, how careless they are, build infrastructure that protects pedestrians. If we had, a pedestrian island or a roundabout that makes people slow down. But also, once the paramedics came, and I asked, where are you taking her? California Hospital, like, with no traffic. California Hospital is 18 minutes away. This was 7 o'clock on a Tuesday. Like, being able to build more care systems that are closer to us to make sure that we are safe and healthy, and building that 15-minute city. So all
Yeah.
of those things, and just I think about on the daily. and how we solve for some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the city council office is so important because it deals with so many aspects of our lives, from the trees, if you have any, or if you don't, if you want more,
Oh,
there's your
tell me. Oh,
office, you know.
out at. Mm. I told this story to someone a couple weeks ago, and of an hour-long conversation, this is what they took away. I tried to plant trees in front of my house,
Uh-huh.
and I filed first for like the free giveaways
Yeah.
and never even heard a response. Then I'm like, okay, well, I can afford to buy some trees and I'll plant them myself. And I had to go and get a permit for the trees. It took me 9 months to get a permit for 2 trees that I was purchasing and planting myself. And that is just like a massive failure of government. Like,
Especially in your area and in my area where tree canopy is so poor, and when heat island effect is a reality
it's
that
a
is
reality.
costing people money, because the
It's
hotter it is in your area, the more you have to turn on your AC and the more you have to pay in your electrical bill. And if you are
exactly.
a low income person with a shitty AC, you pay more. So I'm just so glad that you're bringing this up.
So fixing for things like that, and I look, just myself, I see inefficiencies everywhere. I'm like, the person that gets anxious when people are putting luggage in like the in the airplane storage compartment and they put it sideways, and I'm just like, don't say anything, don't say anything. But it's small things like that where, like, if someone's paying for their trees, they want to plant the trees. We want to encourage trees. Why would it take 9 months to get it approved?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Those are the little things that you start that start adding up. I remember when I ran for city council, it was around the time where we were allowing dwelling units to be built.
Hmm.
And this is when I was just a commissioner also for DWP, and I had office hours. I am the only
I
commissioner
love
in
that.
the
I love
history
that.
of DWP to ever have office hours open, for the community. And people, at least 50% of the people will come and complain about dwelling units, and how the city requires certain things and then the WP requires others, and then like the people not living in their homes for like 6 months, year. They're like, we're living in a hotel for the past year waiting for our house to be finished. So the whole permitting thing, and also with like just like affordable housing permitting, and me, that I'm part of the neighborhood council, we need to do better as a
Right.
city. We need to expedite. We need to figure out that our systems are working together so that people can get
Right.
their permits expedited and they can get what they need. Waiting for a tree for almost a year is unacceptable in the second largest city in the country, where we
Yeah.
have promised that we were going to build 1 million trees, and I don't see the trees. So that's one thing. But in the topic of sustainability, I miss, take me from the top, because I missed a conversation, I guess, or a forum that where you were talking about public transit. So let's just start with public transit in general. So I'm talking about
Yeah.
buses and
Yeah.
trains and like all that good stuff, and then we can take it on to like bike lanes, and let's just entangle this
You're gonna
conversation, because I see people asking questions and I want to know.
you're gonna give me PTSD. Transportation is one of our three priorities:
Mhm.
housing, transportation, small business. And they're interrelated because we need to build density, but we also have to get people out of their cars. And we have to get people out of their cars for many reasons, including climate change, including the fact that we have a freeway that bisects our district, that we have cars idling on the road, creating pollution. This is not just the hottest district in the city, but it's the most polluted, per every single metric, particles, diesel, blah, 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 all the
Mhm.
things, most polluted district in the city. So how do we solve for some of that? How do we move people quicker? Because we have a highly transit dependent population. We've got, higher than 25% like don't even have access to a car. Not that they own a car, have access to a car. So we need to make sure that people are traveling, moving through the city in safe, reliable, clean, and free public transit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm very glad that LAUSD finally got Metro passes for all LAUSD students, but we still have so many students that, parents or abuelas are taking them to school. How about their passes too?
Mm-hmm.
So let's start there.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we define that, and here is my position on public transit, and I'm not running for office. I do believe that we have to inject an incredible amount of funding on our public transit and an integrated public transit service. Buses, trains, buses that connect you to the train. So you jump from, if you don't have a train near you, you can jump from the bus. You can get on the bus, you can jump to the train and get to whatever you need to be, downtown, the beach, the airport, whatever it is. This should not take you 2 hours.
Correct.
Getting in the bus for 2 hours is inefficient. Like nobody wants to do it.
Right.
The other piece to this is that we need to make it popular. Because I lived in New York 15 years of my life. When we first immigrated, my family and I, we went to live in New York. For me, driving a car was like crazy in New York because we just have such great public transit. Not a lot of people own cars. In fact, I owned my first car when I moved to California, and nobody died. And no, I was not less than or more than. I got in the subway at 7 a.m. with Wall Street people, with CEOs, with foreigners, with rich, poor, all of them were in the train. And nobody died or nobody cared. LA has this perception that public transit is for poor people. And so what? And we need to create a campaign where everyone gets on public transit.
But it's not just that that reputation. I would say the converse gets perpetuated too, that Los Angeles is a car city. We need to throw that away too.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, okay, guys, I'm trying to keep up with the comments too, so bear with me. But yeah, so for me, it's like we need to make it so that everyone thinks and feels safe and feels like I can get on the train, and that's cool. And I don't have, I give up my car in the pandemic because I work from home and I didn't need it. And now I have a Vespa, I have a scooter, and I scoot around everywhere I go. It's very cute. But when I have other things, like when it rains or anything else, I also get on the bus, and I don't care. I'm one of those people with the heels, with a brief in the train, or in the bus. But I don't see a lot of that. So that perception needs to end. I also personally believe that we need to have public transit. That's just me. In California, where we pay such high taxes, that's the bare minimum. Somebody here is asking, is your goal to provide free public transportation? So I guess the question, let me rephrase the question. Okay, good. You
Absolutely.
Just said yes. Okay, yes. Design, you got your answer.
So let me just expand on that a little bit. We spend like 33 cents on the dollar of revenue that we get in terms of fares, fares for transit, on enforcement. That is inefficient too. If we got rid of fares, we would therefore also get rid of fare enforcement. So I think it's actually not a far stretch in terms of funding to find funding to make public transit free. Also, I would also say, just like in general, like already our fares are so hard to enforce anyway. If you think about like train platforms where you have to tap in order to get charged, or buses that now have rear door boarding after the pandemic, which is amazing because it provides efficiency too. If you just get everyone on the bus will start moving faster again. It will increase efficiency and it will decrease our need for enforcement.
Yeah. Well, and then we also can talk about the canopy, where people wait for the bus. That sometimes I feel so sad. I'm in my bicycle or in the scooter and I see people waiting in the heat, and it just breaks my heart. Okay, so that's one piece. We kind of talked about, briefly about public transit. I want to talk about biking, because I'm a big bike person. My mom still bikes. I grew up biking, in Colombia. We are the creators of Ciclovia. It's
I
there.
know. Yes, in
Everybody is
Bogota.
on board with the bike.
In
Everybody has a
Bogota.
bike. It's a thing. It's like, give me for Christmas a bicycle. Like, it's just kind of very in our culture. When I came to New York, also very much in the culture. People are rollerblading to work and skating. Everybody's cool, even in that crazy traffic. LA, 10 days. I started getting, biking to work, and I got hit by a car, and I ended up in the emergency room. Yes, with my brief, with my, the whole thing. And it's just so heartbreaking because, number one, I don't think riders or people that drive cars, trucks or whatever, they're not very
Motorists.
friendly. They don't know how to act when you're like in the bike. We don't have enough bike lanes. And the few bike lanes that we have, people don't really respect them. I mean,
No.
I just have to say. So when I ran for office, people used to say to me, if you want more bike lanes, you will never get elected. And it was this kind of like, oh my God. And I was like, oh,
Well,
crap. Okay.
I'm about to see if I'm also.
People used to say that, and I was like, ooh, okay. I'm glad we're not talking about something more serious because I'm wondering. But
Yeah.
what's your take on bike lanes? I do agree that I personally agree that we need more bike lanes. We need to protect people's lives. To me,
Yeah.
we need to create an environment and a society where it's tailored to people, not to
Right.
cars. So
Yes.
what's your take on bike lanes?
Oh man, you're getting me in trouble. This has been such like, people think that like Prop 13 reform is the third rail of like California politics. No, it's about to be bike lanes, and oh my goodness. So we have an incredible mobility plan that was passed in 2015, and prior to that, different mobility plans over the last 50 years, of which, the most recent mobility plan, only 7% has been implemented. So of course, we're putting together a ballot measure to try to get on the ballot to implement this. We absolutely need more bike lanes. Like, we need bike infrastructure. When we build 12 lane freeways, right? Like 6 lanes on each side, 12 lane freeways, and the freeways are empty. And people are like, oh my God, the freeway's so empty. This is fantastic, right? But when people see bike lanes and the bike lanes are empty, they're not like, oh my God, the bike lane's empty. This is fantastic. They're like, no one flipping uses them. Why did we build them? Because it's like the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. But you need to build it completely. You need to build it so that they are protected and safe, and people can't park in them or block them. Going to your point about like motorists are very unkind. I was in the bike lane and there was a motorist that was still in her car. So I was like waiting behind her so that she wouldn't pull into me.
Right.
And this woman has the audacity to yell at me to get out of her way when she
Oh yeah,
is
they
in the
do
bike
that.
lane.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I
what?
heard like insults when I'm on my bicycle. People are like, "Get the fuck out of the way!" I'm
You're
like
in the bike
tiny.
lane.
You have a car. Relax. Like, yeah.
You're like literally in my way, and you're in my way. So, I do bike. I'm more of a scooter commuter. I do have my own scooter, and I commute to downtown. Like some of the way is bike lanes, but those bike lanes are not protected. And we spent, millions of dollars, and people just like block them and park in them and pull out of them without looking at them. So we definitely need protected bike infrastructure, because the bike lanes, we think that like, oh, they're, bougie, whatever, like for
Oh, I have heard from
wealth.
fellow
Uh,
environmentalists say that that's
what
gentrification, that bike lanes gentrify. And I like to
and
remind people, as an immigrant, you know who bikes in my area? Immigrants getting and going to work. You
yeah,
know who bikes? Students. You know who bikes?
exactly.
People that don't have cars and that they
Hmm.
have a short commute, maybe a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. So they rather, bike that take the bus. So I also believe that just when you are parked in the wrong area, and of course, we know that a lot of this parking enforcement also targets people of color. So that's a whole other conversation that we can have. but but also like I believe that we need to make sure that people are following those rules, because we're already in disadvantage in we're already in disadvantage, and it's just sad that we're already risking our lives in a bicycle, which is already
Right.
in Los Angeles dangerous, not in a lot of other
Right.
places. And then like when you're trying to ride, there are cars that are the delivery. I seen a lot of the delivery
Right.
folks like in the bike lanes, and they don't care. They're really like like mean. So yeah, I support that. I think we need to create an connecting pathway so that you can bike
Yeah,
everywhere,
absolutely.
and that's good for your health personally. That help us reduce greenhouse gas emissions and fight climate change, and
All of
it's
that.
free.
Yeah, all of that, and we should be encouraging that. But just to I'm just like digging myself into a hole here, but you talked about delivery drivers and being in bike lanes a lot. Like
Uh-huh.
we have to rethink how we use space because I don't know if your sort of follow-up questions are about like dedicated bus lanes. Like our buses move at 10 miles per hour in
Yeah,
order to
I
speed
I
that
wasn't
up.
even that forward about it, but yes, no, I
But
don't know if that people are asking about that.
But no, I'm just like in general, like, part of that conversation is how do we move our buses faster? Eliminating fares is one way, but also having dedicated bus lanes is another way. And we might have to get rid of either a parking lane or a traffic lane in order to do that. And I'm very much a proponent of that. But when we think about taking away parking, like it can be for either buses or it can be, dedicated loading zones that don't affect our protected bike infrastructure. And
Mhm.
we do need to make space for some of those things, but we also have to take into account that like having more loading zones are great so that people aren't in the bike lanes, but that's also subsidizing multi-million and multi-billion dollar corporations because the people that are using them, ultimately, like I understand, gig workers, but who's benefiting? It's DoorDash, it's Postmates, it's Uber, it's FedEx, it's UPS. Like these are massive companies that should pay to, in the same way that people pay to street park, these
Mhm.
companies should be paying for loading zones. And that's,
Mm,
an additional like revenue source. So like all of these things are very complicated and people want to water it down to like, oh, you want to give gig workers tickets. Like, no, like we should be having DoorDash pay for our loading zone infrastructure,
right.
right? Like we should be thinking about things in a different way. And people are just so stuck in, an absolutist mentality of
Mhm.
how we split the pie versus like, how do we just like reinvent how we use space in the way that Colombia reinvented how you create ciclovia? Like these are questions
Yeah.
that we should be asking. And right now we're just taking what we have and not really thinking creatively about the future of our city that we want.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so we were talking about your priorities. One of them being transportation, the other one being housing. What do you propose for in terms of housing for Los Angeles? And I see the issue of homelessness actually very tight connected to housing. And not and somebody messaged me yesterday and said, I think ex candidate has the solution for homelessness. He's the only one. And I said, I don't think anybody has the solution for homelessness. I said, because it's a systemic issue. It's not just like, let me put them in this corner and they're gone, or let me paint everybody in pink and it's solved. It has a multi-layer kind of approach. It needs a multi-layered approach.
It needs a and if it were as simple as like one person figuring this out, we would have figured this out a long time ago. But it's also a collective responsibility. Like we did not get to this point by one person failing either. Like we've had systemic failure from our city council, our mayor, our, LASA, that means also our board of supervisors, that means our state elected representatives. It has gotten this bad because, not just one person is responsible for that, and not just one person is going to fix it. I
Mhm.
think that there are things that we can move towards, but we have to be collaborative about it. LASA and reform of LASA and Heidi Marston's letter of resignation really struck a chord with me for multiple reasons. Like, one, they don't have the authority to do much. We
Mhm.
need to give them that authority if we want
Oh,
LASA to work,
Laza,
or we
yeah.
have to completely, like start from scratch on how we do this. But in addition to that, the other part, which is sort of a tangent part of this, is pay.
Mhm.
That a lot of our homeless service providers are being paid poverty wages, literally homeless
Mhm.
wages, in order to work on this issue. So we have to reform and raise our level of pay across the board for city services, for homeless services. Like, no one that works for the city should be making less than $50,000 a year. So lifting the tide, raising all the boats. But right now, our fragmented system of care, that every council member is sort of responsible for what's happening in their district. I was very vocal about opposing 4118, the
Mhm.
criminalization of sleeping on our streets, and I was opposed to it for a particular reason. Well, obviously, we should not be criminalizing homelessness. Giving someone that's homeless a ticket is just
It
idiotic.
doesn't
Like,
help.
it's just idiotic, and it's one step closer to jailing someone for being homeless. Like, that's our carceral state at work. You give them a ticket, you give them another ticket, and all of a sudden there's a warrant out for their arrest, etc. So for me, it was mostly about protecting our district. We have the second highest homelessness rate in the city. 4118 is going to be enforced in places that frankly complain more. It's going to be enforced in wealthier areas that are on the phone every day with their
Mhm.
council office to complain about someone being unhoused, and having the police tell them to go along in their merry way. And they're going to go to places that where they're not going to be bothered as
Mhm.
much.
Mhm.
People that are unhoused, like, just want to be left alone and want to feel safe and live and eat. So that place is going to be places like District 9, where we have such a lower complaint and reporting rate. And that is for multiple reasons too. One of them is that we have such an non-citizen population that is afraid to report to police.
Yeah, there's already yeah, like a relationship with law enforcement that is not welcome because of historic reasons and because reasons that are,
Completely
real,
valid. Completely valid. No,
Yeah,
completely valid.
exactly.
So I worry about our unhoused population increasing from the enforcement of 4118 in other districts. So that's sort of where my head's at on
Mhm.
4118. In terms of just our collective efforts in general, we need a strong mayor and leadership that can work with council on a strategic plan and a strategic vision, where it doesn't matter what side of the street you're on, what side of the district that you're on, you just get help.
Yeah.
We all need to work collaboratively because this is a citywide issue and it's going to take a citywide response. Even LASA, we've got 88 cities in Los Angeles County. Like, LASA's like city count, like LA City and County. Like, we need a broader approach to make sure that everyone in the whole county, with help of the city and the other 87 cities that are here, have a collective approach.
Thank you for that. And for those of you that are just walking in here, welcome. I'm speaking with Dulce Vasquez. She is running for Los Angeles City Council District 19, which is in
Historic
yeah,
South Central, south of downtown. It does include
tell
LA
us.
Live and the Convention Center, but it includes University Park, USC, Expo Park, South Central, South Park, all the way down to Green Meadows on 95th.
Amazing, amazing. So if you have questions, and I can't get to all of your questions because we're kind of on a roll here, and I see folks asking questions that we have already answered. And so, you're going to have to watch the replay to see, what the answers were. But so I see some questions coming from Facebook about clean air, and we can maybe tackle those also. And I wanted to talk to you about, because I think you and I have connected before about this, about how hard it is to run for city council and running for office in general. But I feel like, especially city council in Los Angeles, is kind of vicious. And when I run, I run in a very diverse area. I am a diverse person myself, I guess. I was an immigrant from Colombia, and I am of mixed race, but in Colombia I will not be considered mixed race because we are who we are. We don't, like in Colombia, I don't go around saying like, well, this half is black and my other half is white, and I'm just who I am, and it became quite controversial where I was from in my race, and people said that I was not Latina enough, that I was not black enough, that I was nothing enough, and it was heartbreaking because out of everything, I was really trying to just serve my community, and this was not the first time I was serving my community. I have been serving my community for a really long time. So I want to ask you, what are some of the challenges that you face running for office? What are some of the things that are most difficult in your run right now that you can maybe share with us? I don't think people understand sometimes. Like, people come up with so much shit, like literally, like it's just a bunch of this stuff that they come up that I'm just like, what? Like, it's unbelievable. But just tell us a little bit about what are some of the things that you struggle with.
How much time do we have? Running for office is extremely difficult. I mean, from the mechanics of actually running, like there is no blueprint to say this is how you run a campaign. There's a company that's actually really funnily, aptly named, called like Campaign in a Box. Like, there's no blueprint for us, right? Like, you just like decide to run, and like there's all of these papers that you have to fill out when you are with the city clerk, and even down to getting on the ballot, right? Like, it's so hard to get on the ballot, and we are the only campaign to challenge the incumbent that has made the ballot, because you have to have 500 signatures of people who live in the district and are registered to vote, and they have to cross every T and dot every I in the paper that they filled out for you. And 5 people tried to get on the ballot for this election, and only 2 of us made it. So every single step has obviously been like a learning opportunity, and has been a challenge in its own way, starting with money. Incumbency. I'm challenging a 30-year career politician. Incumbency comes with a lot of benefits. One of that is being able to raise money very quickly, because you've you've scratched someone's back, and you've like made a relationship here, and like there's a business owner, and there's like a resident, and there's like the bigger things that I think you encounter too, like endorsements, right? Endorsements can come with a lot of money too, and no one's going to take a chance on a challenger, because it's a lose-lose situation for them, right? It's you piss off the incumbent, who's likely to win again. But also, I mean, if the challenger does win, the challenger has to understand that that's just kind of how the system works, and they're going to work with you anyway. And obviously, I understand some of those issues, and we've had to overcome them in different ways. So we've run our campaign differently. We've had almost 3,000 individual contributions to the campaign from across the country. Like, we've had, our lowest amount has been $1 that was donated to our campaign, and every single dollar matters, because at the end of the day, we have raised the largest sum of money of any challenger to an incumbent in the city.
Mhm.
And I'm very proud of that because we've done that with, almost 3,000 donations. So money is something, things that people don't talk about. It's really hard to ask for money,
Mhm.
and it's really hard to ask family for money.
Yeah.
And, you and I went through the Emerge program, the
Yeah.
candidate training program, and my biggest takeaway was like, oh, like your family and friends are going to disappoint you, but like complete strangers are going to astound you with their kindness. And sure enough, like it's very tough to feel like, some of my relationships will have forever been changed because of the campaign. And that, that sucks, right? To think that like people are going to be there for you that aren't there for you. But then, people I meet on the street, they're like, all right, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
what do you need? Do you need food? Do you need us to door knock? Do you need whatever? And it's just like, it's so heartwarming. I've got a, I've got a team of over 30 that just show up every day.
Mm.
They're actually in a team meeting right now, and usually Wednesdays I have them in my house, and it's just absolute like beautiful chaos, and
Mm.
I love it. And they're wild and they're funny and they're generous and they're so smart, and they're the future of our city. All of them are younger than I am, and I won't tell you how old I am, but no, it's really heartwarming. So there are the tough parts. I'm constantly learning. I work in education, and while I do have a master's in public policy, like you can't be an expert in everything, and people
Mhm.
expect you to be an expert in housing and an expert in transportation and an expert in the economy and job creation. And also at the same time, they're like, okay, well, you're too young, like you don't have experience. Well, like, how do you think Alex Padilla got to be senator at 50 years old? Because he got elected to city council at 26.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of ageism, a lot of sexism, a lot of misogyny, a lot of just everything that I think I've encountered in this situation. And I think the most frustrating part of it is seeing misinformation being spread about myself and my family. And I it's not worth to try to correct or combat.
I know. I even saw here in a comment, I have to put this guy, I'm sorry, B2, whoever you are. I was just tired of your chatter. It's my forum, so I get to dictate what to say. But he was saying something about that you're a millionaire or something, or that you're, oh, he was throwing like that Trump thing on you, like, oh, show your taxes, how much money you make. I'm like, okay, let's say that you make $300,000 a year. Can
Um,
somebody that makes that much money serve their community too? Let's say you
our
make 25,000. Can you serve your community too? I mean, like, I don't
our
get this. I don't get this.
our finances have to be disclosed to the city,
Yeah, I know you
like
can
all of
go. What is it? Ethics.org or whatever.
ethics.lacity.org.
There you go. Go find
But
out.
on it,
Do
like,
your homework.
yeah, I just
Yeah, it's
being able
insane.
to like combat
Oh, well,
those
and this is
sorts
the
of
other
things.
thing that I love. Somebody else was asking here for some history, that you needed to give us a history from the national to the local. I don't fucking see anybody asking that to a man. When was the last time I never had to stand up in any forum, and I speak in public a lot. And I have never seen anybody asking a man to explain, if they know their history, or like what the fuck is this? Like, come on, guys! Like, we need to do so much better. I'm sorry, we need to do much better as a society. We are about to go on the midterms. June 6th are elections, and if you don't know, find out. And if this is the questions that we're asking, I mean, this is in jeopardy.
I'm also really bad at trivia.
There you go. This isn't trivia either. This is real. We're trying to elect
and
people that are going to
so
serve and that are going to represent us. So
So
please
here's what I said
stay on topic.
here's what I said to someone recently, because a former council member is volunteering for a campaign, and I've been asking him a lot of questions about what it's like. He told me that he slept through his first meeting with the mayor because he was in council till 3 in the morning, just reading briefings, trying to get caught up on everything that's
I've been
happening.
there, DWP
And
stuff.
right, and y- you know, when I talked to him, I was like, well, like, what do you think that I should prepare? What do you think I should know? And he's just like, Dulce, being on city council, like all of that stuff is mechanics. And you can learn the mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those are easy to learn. What you can't learn is leadership, integrity, ethics,
Mm-hmm.
and passion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, sir, I got all of those things in droves. And he's like, you're ready to serve. Like, and he's right. Like you can't teach leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Being in city council or being in any of these positions takes being able to put together a team. I'm not an expert on housing, but I'm going to find me an expert on housing to
Yeah,
be on my staff,
that's that leadership part. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Being able to hire, to be able to be humble enough to hire people that are smarter than you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that are knowledgeable and that are also you have to be. I feel like we're in a time of in life and in history where it's okay also to be challenged by your team. In my opinion, I think we're moving away from this style of leadership that the leader is the only person that knows. No, there's tons of other people that know, and you can
Right.
surround yourself with people that know, that are smart, that are able to challenge your thinking, that you're able to listen to the community, and that's also important. Somebody was asking, why are you bringing the gender card? Because when I see a man asking a woman to basically let me quiz you about this or that, I don't see that man asking the same thing to another man that is running for office because it's just bias. It's just not even your fault, sir, whoever you are. It's just bias.
And some of the, like, I think a lot of the sexism is also sort of couched in the ageism too, right? Because I knock on doors and, like, I get it constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, eres una muchachita, like, how are you gonna run for office? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am or sir, like, respectfully, I've had a 15-year career.
Yeah.
I'm sorry this
Yeah.
beautiful
I
brown
know.
skin does not reflect it, but, like, I've been around.
I absolutely. I have a funny question coming from, but I think it's an important question to answer. People ask me this question a lot, and I'm just like, whatever, people. But people are asking if you're single. Tell us about your personal life. I guess that's the real question behind this thing, this question.
I am not very much not single. I will be celebrating 8 years of marriage
Wow.
next month. I've been with my spouse since I was 23 years old. So we have built, over the last, what was it, 13 years almost, we've built an incredible life together. He supports me in every single way, from making me coffee in the morning to just being a great, bouncing board of how I do this, or just a hug, or, we've got two incredible puppies that are a handful. So being able to take care of the puppies while I'm gone for like multiple hours at a time, I think that part is has been really pivotal to me continuing on this campaign, is to just have that moral support, that, you know, all sorts of support.
I'm gonna tell a story that I don't, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm gonna tell a story about running for office that is important. And that personal support is so tremendous. Like it's just so huge, And I don't get to talk a lot about this because it's like it's in the past. But actually, when I was running for office, I went through a breakup with my partner. my partner that I live with, that I thought I was going to die with, and that sort of thing. So if that teaches you anything, is that you're so much more resilient, but having that support, it is so important. And I even remember before I decided to run for office, when I was thinking about it, talking to him and joking about it, and and it's just like one of those things. You have to really appreciate the people that are appreciating you in the moment. And even me, in the midst of going through a campaign and through a breakup, just finding that community that was like so beautiful for me, like it was so like important, like so grateful for that. So I'm so glad that you have like incredible people around you, and that you have the support that you need, because you need it in order to be successful. So that's exciting. So if people want to support you, how can they do that, and what do you need?
I need people to physically come knock on doors with us. So,
Exactly.
Auda, like I'm looking at you because I know how flippin' excellent you are
Oh
at
yeah,
knocking
I
on
love
doors.
going on, like knocking on doors.
I need you
Yeah, I'm
on
gonna come. I'm
Saturday.
gonna come.
You're gonna come. Yeah, no, I mean, if you're in the Los Angeles area, come spend an afternoon with us. Saturdays and Sundays, we're out every single weekend. We've only got 4 weekends left until election day.
Yeah.
And that is just like, oh my God, I can't believe like I need four more weekends. So come door knock with us. Send me a DM through any of the mediums that you're watching here.
Yeah.
Um, come
And
door knock with us is the best way. Second, on all the socials, share, like, follow, because
mhm.
that just increases our exposure and helps us reach hopefully more of the voters that are in this district. So social media. And then third, if you've got $5 or $10 to send over to the campaign, we've struggled with catching up to the incumbent. He's got like almost $150,000 more like in the bank right now than we do. And we're never going to close that gap, but we're just going to be a lot more efficient and effective in how we use our money. Part of door knocking, like that's free. It's free to contact one voter, per door knock. So those 3 ways are just incredible ways to get involved. And if you've ever
Amazing.
wanted to learn about a campaign or how they're run or what you do, 34 more days to come join ours and see how it's done.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I so appreciate your
That flew
knowledge,
by.
and I appreciate so much you taking the time. I know that especially right now it's such crunch time, and you don't have time for you're running around and you don't have time for anything. So thank you so much for coming in and educating our community. I commend you for running for office. It's so hard, and it requires so much courage and really love for others and for your city. So thank you so much for doing that. Good luck. We're gonna this live stream is gonna live in Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter right now, and also in Instagram. So people can get in touch with you that way. And I hopefully see you in the campaign trail as we come knocking on doors. I definitely need to get my steps. So I will come and see you very soon. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for joining us today. And that was Dulce Vasquez, who is running for District 9 in Los Angeles. And of course, the conversation always continues online through the comments. And I hope that our conversation ignited and enlightened something in you. And don't forget, every time there is always an opportunity to get involved. Thank you so much, guys. And I talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye.